Mona's got to be careful that Dirk's making his move on mutants. Here's your look at the NECA Toys Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon series, Dirk Savage and Mona Lisa. Dirk Savage is a man who is hired by A.J. Howard to capture mutants. He originally believed that all mutants were evil, including the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. He eventually betrays Howard after realizing his employer's true intentions, and that most mutants were friendly after all. While Dirk is dealing with mutants, Mona Lisa has to worry about her physics test. Before we get a closer look at Dirk Savage and Mona Lisa, let me send out a big thank you to the folks over at NECA that did provide this sample we could have a look at. A bit of a strange pairing, I feel, the fact that they would combine these two characters. Just because, again, like when I consider Mona Lisa, I feel like she should have been better paired with Phineas Filch. Either way, though, let's grab the tape measure and see how tall the figures stand. First, with Dirk Savage, the figure factoring in his hair is about 6 1/4 inches in height, or it's about 16 centimeters tall. On to then the slightly smaller Mona Lisa. First, though, in inches, you're looking at the figure of Mona Lisa being about 5 1/2 of that. And in centimeters, you're looking at her being about 14 1/2 centimeters tall. Well, considering that Mona Lisa tried to pretend that Raphael was her date on McDonald Crump's yacht, I thought it would probably make the most sense to bring in Raphael for comparison. You can see that while compared to her bow, the color scheme is pretty good on these. I prefer, at least when it comes to displaying a lot of my turtle toys, to be displaying them with the darker colored turtles. And I think it works best, especially with Mona Lisa, considering her olive colored skin. For a figure to then compare with Dirk Savage, while I don't still have the version 2 April O'Neil that would be slightly bit taller with a longer neck, I did, though, have the version 1 April O'Neil, so you can see what it looks like with Dirk Savage. What I like about this box set is that I don't feel it favors any one particular character when it comes to the stocking of accessories. Mona Lisa, I feel, has just as much as Dirk Savage. Although Mona Lisas are all sort of more school-related, Dirk Savage just basically wields a bunch of weapons. Now, first, for Mona Lisa's accessories, why don't we look at a pair of books? They're not identical a pair, but you can see that they're probably sculpting using the exact same mold. One, though, is chemistry, and I believe, though, she is a physics student, so one, of course, is a physics book. These are nicely paired with one another. I'm sure you probably could have these displayed with Mona Lisa, but I'm thinking also of a bigger picture, a much grander picture. If I only could come across a little tiny table, maybe at some point we might get ourselves a little lab table for Donatello. I would love to really have these displayed on Donatello's table. And certainly that's something I could see the turtle actually studying, both chemistry and physics. She comes included with those. She also comes included with the various different lab accessories. She comes first of all with a tray of beakers. Each one of these are actually test tubes, I should say. These are all individually removable. Careful not to lose any one of these. They all seem to be molded the same. Granted, the colors have been differently done here. You've got a pastel blue, pastel pink, and pointing with it, you got a pastel green. And again, all of these are removable. They're actually a lot harder, I find, to put them back in than they are to remove. I'm not really sure why that is. But again, I would certainly like to have this displayed with Donatello, I think, instead. She also comes included with something that unfortunately I have already lost. She comes included, I guess, with this as being a beaker. The beaker did have a little tiny cork. Now, normally I would have said that's great, the fact that a cork is removable, but not necessarily the case when removing it out of the tray and not assuming that the cork is removable, because when I did tip it, the cork fell out, and luckily none of the liquid fell out and ended up exploding. But I do wish, though, that the cork wasn't removable, because now I can't even find where it's been. It's basically about this small, so good luck me even finding it. It sits inside of a tray, and I guess that would be also sitting on top of a Bunsen burner, but nice the fact that she also comes included with it. Don't really love the fact that the cork was removable, because again, its whereabouts remain unknown. And then she also comes included with this as well, which again is just a variation of a beaker. Pink, though, fluid down below here, nicely colored here. And again, you have that little, I guess this would be the part that would siphon off the liquid then into something else. This is basically a very rubbery plastic. So she comes included with those. She then also as well comes included with a bunch of series of interchangeable hands. So like, for example, with a test tube, she comes with suitable hands for holding those. She also has as well closed fists. I can't really see myself ever really displaying the figure with closed fists other than if you want to just be punching people like Phineas, for example. But she also comes included with those, and she also comes included with a pair of relaxed hands. Now, just to move those aside, getting also a closer look, the other thing that comes included with Mona Lisa, just bear with me while I move everything out of the way, is she also comes included with an angrier expression as well. Based on the way that she's making this expression, I hate to be in Raphael's case if he missed the date. I do like the expression on her face. I'm not really sure if I would decide to display her with the angrier head sculpt or rather instead just stick with the more neutral, happier expression. But both of them are equally well sculpted and very nicely painted, to the point where even they outline the areas of her eyes, added the pupils, the little tiny eyelashes, and also as well the eyebrows. Now, Mona Lisa, I think, was only in a one-shot episode. It was Raphael meets his match. I'm going to go ahead and remove her head. The head I did have some tough time to remove initially. I just run a few passes with the hairdryer just to soften up the plastic. And if you did want to change out to a more angrier expression Mona Lisa, the head then just pops back into place. Now again, if you're having any tough time removing and then adding head sculpts back onto the ball joints, always go the route of heating them first. This one has since cooled a little bit, so it's going to be not as easy to put back into place. You know, on second thought though, looking at the two, by the way, the hair seems to be identical between the two. I like this one, but maybe I might just settle on the idea of giving her an angry expression, because I just think it works a little bit nicer. Especially also gives you a chance as well to see the really nice additional paintwork that they applied to her teeth and the panel lining around it. She'd also have, now this is the mutated version of Mona Lisa. She inherits, of course, the name from the painting, the very famous painting, Mona Lisa. But at one point, again, she was a physics student, so I hope at some point we maybe get a human version of Mona Lisa. Nicely colored, though. She has her little scarf there painted in pink. The pink happens to also match as well the bandana that she has across the top of her head as well. And a very well-painted figure. I really feel like, though, for the price of admission for the set is more Dirk Savage. I really like to look at him. But I will say, though, to the credit of Mona Lisa, she turned out to be a really nice-looking figure. Considering the fact that really she is standing alone as a one-shot character, it's nice to see that NECA spends just as much time and effort to sculpt and paint this figure, even though she really only made one appearance, as far as I know at least. The articulation on the figure, I mean, first of all, we kind of just look at the rest of the figure's body. She has a nice darker coloring on the back. Of course, the one thing about the cartoon turtles is, again, notably is the fact that she has the darker shadowing on the one side, the brighter than section on the front side. And of course, she does have a really nice additional dark colored tail. But for the posability of Mona Lisa, the head is on a ball joint, so it's going to rotate back and forth, up and down. Also rocks back and forth as well. The arms hinge out at 90 degrees, no problems there. You can take the arms and rotate them all the way around. Now, I did notice that with my shoulders, at least, not my shoulders, not the guy behind the camera, but Mona Lisa's shoulders are a tad bit on the tight side. Just be careful when you're doing this. Swivel at the bicep, the figure has a double hinge on the elbow, and the hands, as webby as they are, do rotate also all the way around. She has a ball joint, I should say, at the top of the torso. She also has splits on the legs, being the provided ball joints on the insides of her thighs. So of course, you can take the legs and move them forward and move them back. She has a double hinge on the knee. Now, I did notice on mine also as well, there's a lot of tight joints on Mona Lisa, which normally wouldn't be a complaint at all. I would much rather tighter joints on these figures than overly loose joints. Her feet also move back and forth. You can also rock them back and forth a little bit as well. And her tail, as probably would be expected, does have a ball joint, so you can rotate that all the way around. The tail also certainly helps to add a little bit of stability to the character. So all in all, like, it's a really nice looking figure. Now, I though have to wonder, I did mention this at the beginning of the review, why they wouldn't have not packed Captain Filch, or Phineas Filch, along with Mona Lisa. Because when I ever think of Mona Lisa, for what little we see of her in the original animated series, I always then tend to think of her with Phineas Filch. Again, maybe it may have something to do with the fact that maybe Phineas is going to be packed with a more interesting looking character. That's my only guess, at least. But, I mean, to have Dirk Savage still packed along with her is still a nice touch. But I think I would much rather have had Captain Filch instead. On to, though, the accessories now that come included with Dirk Savage. And like I said, he does come with quite a lot. First, the figure comes included with a cattle prod. This has been very nicely painted. You can see majority is darker blue, and then they've added some accented areas here in a darker gray. I'm trying to do my best to get my hand out of the way. Nice white on the end, and of course you got the cattle prod needle there on the end. I think it's a cattle prod from what I remember. This can be, of course, fit in his hand. He does have a couple of gripping hands for the job. You can just take that and fit this into his hand. The thing about all these is, though, you really want to be careful, though, that the paint isn't going to start to flake. You can see a little bit of it right there. Always best recommended to really heat the hand in hot water. I mean, if you're having any problems. One thing I will say, though, about the hands is that the plastic used for them is fairly soft enough that even if you don't have access to hot water, you can always just pry the fingers away from the palm. You can see right there. The figure as well comes included with sort of a almost more futuristic gun. The gun itself, again, nicely done here in brown plastic. Some additional gray for the barrels on the front. Also has a strap down below here, and then can also be fit into his hand. Now again, the hardest thing about these is that they're just always very difficult to get into hands. I have heated these hands prior to hitting the record button, but over the time, of course, just me talking away, the plastic's now started to cool. You kind of have to put them in on an angle, but he does have the means to properly hold it. It's just a little bit more difficult now once the plastic is cooled. What I end up doing is heat the hand in hot water, and then while it's still hot, I put whatever weapon that the character is supposed to be wielding inside, so it then stretches the hand to shape make that shape, or to hold that shape. Now this actually does have a place to store, other than just his hands. He does have this holster that does then attach on the back of his bandolier. The problem with this, though, is that you have to, in order to get the gun in place, first of all, you have to remove this strap. And I already don't like that. I worry that with the thinness of the plastic, not to mention the softness of it as well, that it's always more prone to ripping. There's really no other way to do it, unfortunately. But this basically will then plug onto his body. This is the peg that's provided. We're going to get back to that more in a moment. But what we're going to do is we're going to take the blaster, and really it's best advised. Now, again, I did already heat this. I probably could have heated this just a little bit more. If it does help at all, you can kind of get your thumb in there just to pry the plastic, just to make enough of a ravine that you can then slide the gun in place. The problem with this also as well is you probably can already guess for yourself. I mean, obviously the strap's going to go back in place. That's not the problem necessarily. But with the gun being so close in quarters like this, I feel there's a risk that this could start scraping the paint on the inside. So like if the side brown, for example, it hasn't happened yet, but I'm sure the number of times of moving this in and out of this chamber that I'm probably going to start ripping and scratching away the plastic paint on the sides. So you may not want to do it too often. The cattle prod, by the way, also does attach. There's a little clip there on the side. Just be careful of doing this, though. And you can also attach the cattle prod in place, too. I'm not going to really attach the cattle prod yet, because if you look at the back of the figure for Dirk Savage, you'll see that there's a hole right here. Now, if you take the gun, it's a little hard to do. First, you kind of have to line everything up here. See, you have kind of like a keyhole shape. You want to make sure also, first of all, that this strap is out of the way. But if you move this in place, then you can then line the two up together, and you snap that into his torso. Now, if you're having tough times to do that, you can also just lift the bandolier up a little bit. So then, first of all, you can get that in place and then plug it into his torso from there. The last thing you really don't want to do is put any pressure against this clip, because that's going to happen. That's going to happen, and then you could be disappointed that you broke your figure. I mean, you really don't even have to fight to get that into the hole on the back of his body. The bandolier is more than enough to kind of keep everything in place. Then from there, you're going to go ahead and take yourself the prod, the cattle prod. You're going to just snap that in place. And now Dirk Savage has the means to store all of his weapons except for one. While he is doing that, though, let's look at the few remaining weapons that he has. He has himself like a little ray gun. Again, episode specific, nicely colored here between medium grays, dark grays, and the additional red on the end of the barrel. Really nice looking gun. He also has a pair of restraining cuffs, which he does use actually, I think, on Toka, and he also uses it as well, I think, for the frogs, if my memory serves me correctly. These are fairly long enough, too, that it reaches, I mean, if you have a larger size mutant, for example, or even if, for example, you wanted to bring yourself in Raphael, just bring his arms forward like this, you really don't even have to really remove the hands. There's enough clearance, obviously, with the cuffs themselves, that you just slide over top of his hands, and you got yourself a restraining cuff. Mondo Gecko, if memory serves me correct, also did come include with one of the restraining, I don't know if it was was it a cuff? I think it was a cuff. Not similar to like this necessarily, but he also came included with something that also was from Dirk Savage. Savage has really, across the board, had many of his accessories sort of sprinkled in there with some of the other sets we've looked at before. Like, for example, this. He also comes included with like this foot trap. The trap itself, I think he actually kicks over, and it basically is just a little trap. Like, this top part does actually remove, and then again, some really nice detailing on the inside of it. If you, though, didn't want to use it necessarily for a trap, if you're always kind of thinking in your head, hey, creative ways, what else can I really do with this? Oh, well, why not? You can actually use that for something for Donatello. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to use it specifically the way it was designed for the episode. Why not just use this as something that Donatello would make? Maybe like something, maybe put one of his beakers in, for example. You can have that like that, for example. You can also even pretend that that's something inside of Shredder's lair. You can really do whatever you want with these. But really overall nicely detailed. You can see, again, some nice red on the inside. All these additional buttons done in red. Some nice additional panel lining. All in all, just really nice accessories. And for, of course, wrapping up the rest of this, he also comes included with a couple of gripping hands for holding any of the weapons. He also comes included with one specifically for holding the cattle prod. And those are all the accessories that come included with the figure. Boy, what a relief off my shoulders. Okay, then on to Dirk Savage. For this, I'm actually going to go ahead and take the liberty of removing the holster just because I don't want that getting broken in any way. Dirk Savage, though, really nice looking figure. Dirk Savage actually came from the episode of Dirk Savage Mutant Hunter, so right away you already know the episode is all about him. The detailing done to him is really nice. I would almost say, and many probably would also agree as well, that Dirk Savage is, I feel, the price of admission when it comes to this set. Nothing really slouching on Mona Lisa necessarily, but I think like there's a lot of cool stuff going on here with Dirk Savage. The coloring is really good. The head sculpt is fantastic. I really like, again, like he's got the really high hair like this. I don't know what inspiration they had when designing Dirk Savage, but I feel in a way like it has a little nod to like Bruce Campbell. Very big chin, very high hair. I feel it looks a little bit like Bruce Campbell. I might be a little wrong by that. Of course, the coloring is nicely carried, not only just for his head with the 5 o'clock shadow, but he also has the darker coloring. Nice, vibrant coloring, I should say, for the red for his outfit. Shoulder pads nicely handled here with some additional brown and gray. Anything you would expect to see in this figure that would be seen in the cartoon, you'd also find here on the figure as well. He's got a grenade. He's got a few little things also detailed here, also on his belt. Really, all in all, a nice looking figure. Now, Dirk Savage, similar to Mona Lisa, had some problems with joints. Mainly more the fact that he had really tight knees, and they're actually still really tight. Still, I'm not too bothered by tight knees. I mean, if anything, it's only just a bit of bummer for me to try to show you guys the articulation points when things like knees, for example, are super tight. But I'd much rather have tight joints on these knees than super loose joints where I'm going to have the figure falling over it all. For the articulation, though, on Dirk Savage, his head's going to be on a ball joint, so of course it rotates all the way around. It looks up and looks down, and he actually has, I just want to stop myself for a second, he has a ball joint right here, and he also has a ball joint like right here. So really between the two, the figure actually has double ball joints, one in the head and one also in the neck as well. Shoulders do come out, and even though his shoulders sit as far out as they do, it doesn't necessarily limit the articulation for the figure's arms. You can easily move them forward. You can also move them as well back. A swivel at the bicep. The figure also possesses a double hinge on the elbow, and the hands rotate all the way around. Upper torso, once again, is on a ball joint. Further from that, a little bit lower down to the belt, he also has a secondary ball joint at the base of the abdomen. Legs do split out, once again, on ball joints. You can take those legs forward and back, yes. Swivel at the top of the thigh, double hinge on the knee. No articulation here for Dirk's boots, although you can still move his feet up and down and back and forth. One of those sets, again, I feel like Dirk Savage probably could have been paired with somebody else. Not that I'm necessarily knocking the fact that NECA decided to pair Dirk Savage along with Mona Lisa, but I feel like with Mona Lisa, now that she gets packed along with Dirk Savage, does that not mean we're never going to get ourselves Phineas Filch? I certainly hope we do. Phineas Filch plays a pivotal role when it came to Mona Lisa's episode, so I'd like to certainly see him make some appearance in a figure form. It probably will ultimately mean that if we are going to be getting ourselves Filch, Filch will probably be paired then along with another character that may not necessarily be specific to the episode that he appears in. Of course, when you have two characters like this, get a lot of accessories, and that's one thing, again, consistently good about the stuff that NECA's doing with the TMNT line, is that they include as many accessories as they do. And as hopefully I showed you guys in this review. Just because, again, like you get yourself really interesting accessories that are specific, say, to this character, does not mean at all that you couldn't easily use these accessories for something else. I'm looking at this and I'm thinking of something I would have seen in the Technodrome or even something in the sewer that Donatello is currently working on. While I may question exactly why these two were paired together, I mean, Mona Lisa I don't necessarily consider as a character I would have boxed right away with, say, Dirk Savage. Phineas Filch, as I did mention in this review, would definitely make a lot more sense to me. But does that now mean because Mona Lisa gets paired along with Dirk Savage, is there still going to be a likelihood that we are going to be getting ourselves Captain Filch? I certainly hope so, because I would love to have him displayed on the shelf along with Mona Lisa. For the time being, at least, I'm not going to be probably displaying Mona Lisa and Dirk Savage together. No, in fact, Mona Lisa will be paired right next to her beau, Raphael. And I think what I might just end up doing is put Dirk Savage displayed with the cartoon versions of Tokka and Raza. Tokka and Raza, for me at least, displayed on my shelf, they seemed a little out of place, just because, again, like there were, I think, 1 or 2 episode characters, and they never really fit in, I felt, with the universe of the cartoon animation world of TMNT stuff. So for me, at least, I'm going to be displaying, I think, Dirk Savage with the cartoon versions of Tokka and Razar. What do you guys think of this set? Let me know down below in the comments section. As already mentioned, this is a Target store exclusive. So if you're lucky enough and you happen to live near a Target store or somewhat in the vicinity of a Target store, definitely check out your local Targets and see if this one's still sitting on the shelf. It has been, as far as I know, sitting on the shelf for probably the last couple of months. So the likelihood of you finding this will, of course, only vary depending on what Target stores you have. Sometimes it actually benefits you if you live in a smaller area, like a smaller town, and you happen to have a Target stores where there really isn't a lot of collectors hitting those stores on a regular basis. Maybe your likelihood is a little higher that you might be able to find sets like this still sitting on the shelves. But if you have had a chance to find this, let me know down below in the comments section what you guys think of this set. And who else would you like to see as a box set release from NECA Toys? I mean, I know we're kind of getting down to like the wire when it comes to the things that NECA can still do for the TMNT cartoon line. But with considering the fact that Mona Lisa was sort of a one-shot character, there's still a very good likelihood that we are going to be getting still a lot more TMNT stuff in the not-so-distant future. Big thank you once again to the folks over at NECA that did provide, once again, the sample of Dirk Savage and Mona Lisa. If you guys enjoyed this video, want to hit with a like. If you guys are enjoying the content and would like to certainly stick around for more TMNT stuff, you may have noticed also as well, there's been an influx of TMNT reviews here on this channel. We're playing a bit of a catch-up game now. So if that's the kind of thing you like to come back to this channel for, and you think of yourself waving your hand vigorously, why does this guy not look at more TMNT stuff from NECA? I'm answering your calls now. Definitely will be coming more your way. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.